Redeeming Capital One miles for good value can be difficult. In fact, it's probably the single most cited reason of Capital One VetraX cardholders for frustration or a negative experience on what's otherwise a phenomenal travel credit card. However, while difficult, it doesn't have to be impossible. That's why in this video, I'm going to share with you 3 different strategies with examples for how to send your Capital One miles outside of Capital One to get better value through transfer partners. And whether you're looking for some of those big value redemptions ranging close to 10 cents per point, or you're looking for something a little more practical, maybe an economy seat flying within the United States, there's going to be something here for everyone. So if you want to learn how to get a little more bang for your buck out of your Capital One miles, well, let's get right on into it. Before we get into the strategies, let's take a big step back and talk about big picture why this is so important. If you're a beginner to the game, welcome. You may be surprised to realize that your pool of Capital One miles actually becomes more or less valuable depending on your redemption method. I've got other videos talking about all of the different ways you can spend those, but to sum your 2 basic options up when you're redeeming for travel, when you book inside the Capital One travel portal, your miles are pegged at a flat 1 cent per point valuation. That means, for example, a $602 flight is going to cost just under 60,200 miles. That value, no matter the flight cost, route, location, whatever, will remain the same when booking inside of Capital One's portal. However, when you send your Capital One miles outside of Capital One to one of their 16 different partners, those valuations, those can go up and sometimes considerably depending on the sweet spots you're able to find. Now, I have a quick transfer partner guide to help you not only with Capital One, but whatever issuer you're earning points and miles on to help you remember where your miles can potentially go. This, along with my other guides, are available for free at rdguarantee.com/guides. Finding one of those Capital One partners can be very beneficial. However, I'm sure you've scanned that list and you may see that the flight or airline you're hoping to book with is not one of those 16 partners. That may seem like a roadblock on the surface, but not all hope is lost. This is where, and examples coming in this video, I'll show you how to use airline alliances, which are partnerships that go inside of one of those 16 different brands that you see in the Capital One transfer partner list that you can use to book potentially the flight on the airline you want, even if it's not listed directly as a Capital One partner. Airlines group themselves into different alliances, and as long as your desired airline that you want to book on is a member of the same alliance as one of the Capital One transfer partners, that booking may be possible. For example, a popular one is within the Star Alliance, where Air Canada is a Capital One transfer partner, and you can use Air Canada's website to book some United Airlines flights, which is not directly accessible through Capital One. Now, before you rush to send your points to Air Canada, here's 3 things I want you to remember as I take you through these 3 examples. First, be flexible. There's a phrase in this game, let the deal decide the destination. And that essentially means that you may not be able to be locked onto one itinerary with one departure and one return. Not all airline alliances post every flight, so sometimes you're going to have to be flexible with when you'll depart and when you're willing to come back to get those good deals. 2, transfers are final. You can't get your points back. 3, practice makes perfect. Like I said, this isn't easy, even if you're a more experienced traveler. But the more you practice, the more you'll recognize patterns and clues, and the easier finding the flights and the routes that you want will become. So let's hop into method number 1, which is using the strategy of taking Capital One miles and sending them over to Virgin Atlantic to book cheap flights back and forth from the US to the UK. Let me show you exactly how to get this done. First, pop open Google and you're going to search Virgin Reward Seat Checker. The Virgin Reward Seat Checker is a big picture overview where you enter your departure and arrival destinations, and it shows you the best possible points price that you can book for that route over month-long periods. Now, while the deals can be incredible here, the first thing to note is that if you don't live near a US departure city, you may have to take a repositioning flight to make these trips happen. However, once you select your departure and then arrival, you'll get an entire monthly overview of the lowest possible points prices on the different routes. not just flying Virgin, but the different alliance members within the SkyTeam Alliance. For example, I popped in Atlanta to London Heathrow. You'll see as I scroll through the months, there are economy seats as low as 7,500 miles. As I record this video in August, 3 months from now in November and December, there are some limited Saver Award seats, which are those red tags indicating the lowest possible discount rates that are available. However, you can notice that trends show when you book 5 or 6 months out in January and February, you start to see those Saver Award seats everywhere. Remember that for when you're looking at your own potential trips. When we look in more of that time period, you start to see upper class cabins, which means business class or lie flat seats available for as low as 29,000 miles. And of course, if you book one of those, you'll also be able to access the Virgin Atlantic Clubhouse depending on the airport you choose to fly in and out of. Now, once you've looked at the big picture Virgin Rewards seat checker and you've seen your monthly calendar, you're ready to dive in and find that exact flight. This means it's time to go to Virgin Atlantic's website and complete the booking, searching for the exact date you found in the big monthly view, and then targeting that award search on their site. For me, I targeted the lowest Saver Award prices on Saturday, January 24th. That offered flights in economy for 7,500 miles or 29,000 miles when I looked for that upper class seat. Now, that economy flight would normally have a $515 one-way price tag. And when I use the cent per point calculator available at rdguarantee.com, plug all of those data points in, I get a cent per point valuation of 5.4 cents per point. What about for that lie flat business class seat? When I plug that information in as well, I can get from Atlanta to London one way for just 29,000 miles and $578 in taxes and fees. And that's all possible instead of paying a cash price of $3,266. When you put all that in, that results in a 9.3 cent per point valuation for that incredible business class seat. Now, the cent per point calculator on the website does it all. But I just want to remind you, if you're hand calculating these, the formula to calculate cent per points is the price in cash minus taxes and fees divided by the amount of points it costs to redeem that flight and then multiplied by 100. Now, Virgin Atlantic has some great deals, but it's going to be a little bit limited in terms of your destination being primarily within the UK. Let's look at Europe as a whole, and that's where method number 2 comes in. Using the Flying Blue monthly promo chart to get over to the entirety of Europe for under 20,000 miles. Flying Blue is the shared frequent flyer program for Air France and KLM. In comparison to Virgin Atlantic, the Air France network and then the KLM network are going to be huge. So want to try to use either of these direct partners from Capital One to get yourself over to Europe for a vacation experience? Well, look no further because we're going to see a bunch of options for just under 20,000 miles that would make this trip possible. Let's talk about how to start. First, you're going to navigate to www.flyingblue.us and create your account or log into your pre-existing account. We're looking for the monthly promo chart. And to find that, you're going to go to Spend Miles, then Show All Promo Reward Tickets, and then Flying Blue releases monthly their new promo reward tickets for about 6 months out in advance on the first of every single month. You'll see, similar to Virgin Atlantic, not all cities are going to be possible to fly out of. Again, a repositioning flight, which still will result in considerable savings, is necessary to get to your departure city if you don't happen to live within driving distance. However, you're still going to see that Seattle, San Francisco, Miami, and Washington all offer departures for under 20K miles to get yourself over to a ton of different destinations in Europe. Now, the next steps, let's navigate to your preferred departure airport. In this example, I'm going to choose Washington, D.C. Of course, with a flight in Washington, I'll be able to use this Venture X and get into the Capital One Lounge in Washington IAD before I fly overseas. With Washington selected, I'm going to choose my arrival airport as a trip over to Barcelona. Make sure to leave the dates open when you're selecting this, and you'll get the monthly award chart popping up once you press search. Here, you'll see tons of availability, all priced at about 18,750 miles. When you select a date that you like, in this example, I choose Wednesday, October 1st. You can then select and then navigate to the flight options and the different itineraries. Again, let's put the data into the cent per point calculator. This would be a cash price flight of $432. However, to book in points, it's just 18,750 points plus $121.80 in taxes and fees. That results in a respectable economy price, cent per point valuation of 1.65. This is a prime example of letting the deal decide the destination. For travelers such as myself who just wants to create new experiences in different places, I'm not too picky about when I leave or when I return, but I would love and get a ton of value out of getting to see Spain for a really relatively cheap points price. The monthly promo award chart is a great place to start your browsing when you're creating new travel ideas for yourself or your loved ones to create these new experiences. Let's now move to method number 3, which is the most flexible method I have for you today. This is using Pointia to shortcut to find the best possible transfer partners depending on your exact desired route. Sometimes this whole process can feel overwhelming. I gave you 2 examples already, which are pretty broad-based. In the first one, you have to be willing to end up in the UK to start your trip off. And in the second one, while you can go all over Europe, you have to be willing to depart from one of those few departure cities in the US that gets you that low award seat booking. Fortunately, there are a few different tools online that help you find the shortcuts to maybe customize your route a little bit more. One of these is Pointia. Pointia can take your issuer that you're working with, not just Capital One, but any of the issuers out there, and filter by only the redemptions that you can make with specifically your issuer's currency. In this, of course, I'm going to use Capital One miles, and it means that you're not just searching Google Flights endlessly, finding a bunch of populated results that simply won't work for the currency that you're holding. Here's how it works. First, I'm going to enter my search parameters. Let's pretend I'm leaving from my actual home airport in Kansas City, and I want to go over to Philadelphia. With a premium membership, I get to search for an entire week at a time. I've got a discount code for you to use in the description of this video if that's something that you want to do yourself. But within that, I can put from January 7th through the 14th. My only restriction here is that I'll select the bank I'm using as Capital One, meaning the results I get will allow me to use my Capital One miles as currency to end up booking. After hitting go, it takes about 20 seconds to populate the results. This shows me my best option to book with points and miles is to take my Capital One miles and transfer them out to Avianca Life Miles, which then can be used to book the United Airlines operated flight. This again, as a refresher, is because United and Avianca both have their programs in the Star Alliance, meaning that United allows some of their seats to be shown on the Avianca website for booking on their flights. Now, this option typically costs 15,000 miles to redeem, but Avianca all the time has point transfer bonuses through Capital One. And at the time I'm recording this, currently there's one going on now. This means that instead of transferring 15,000 miles, I only need 13,100 miles to redeem that. When I enter this information in my handy dandy cent per point calculator, a $250 cash price flight redeemed for 13,100 miles plus just $5.60 in taxes and fees comes out to a clean 1.9 cent per point valuation. Now again, I'll finish with a slight disclaimer on Pointia. Pointia and every other award booking service do have their flaws. I think they're great at finding general trends in how you can send your Capital One miles out for the type of different partner airlines that would help you book a flight, but by no means do they have every single option available. They're just not quite that good in finding all the award seats, so it's possible you could be missing out on one or two. I always continue to do my own research on those partner websites to make sure the flight I want to book really is there and I can be ready to send my miles out to the partner to make the booking possible. They will save a ton of time and they're very good, but they're not perfect. Now, like I said at the top, using your Capital One miles to book your desired flights can be difficult. However, I hope this video showed that there are still some exciting ways that can inspire you to take your next trip and make your pool of Capital One miles that much more valuable in being a catalyst in making those trips happen. I appreciate you watching these examples and methods, and for more ways to level up your credit card strategy, don't forget to subscribe to the channel.